The Galactic Empire's fleet appeared out of nowhere. Earth was unprepared. The skies were clear, the stars shining brightly over a peaceful planet. No one expected the massive black warships that emerged from the abyss of space, their hulls reflecting the light of the distant sun as they descended towards the Earth's atmosphere. They didn't announce themselves. There were no demands, no messages of intent. Just the unmistakable sight of an armada that could obliterate the entire planet in an instant. The first shots were fired without warning. The Empire's ships opened fire from orbit, and Earth's largest cities turned to rubble in seconds. Buildings disintegrated, massive shockwaves rolled out across continents, and fires sparked in every corner of the globe. An emergency broadcast interrupted television signals. This is a message from the United Nations. Earth is under attack. All citizens are advised to seek shelter immediately. All military forces are on high alert. This is not a drill. But it was too late for that. In a matter of hours, the Empire's relentless bombardment had already devastated half the world's major population centers. The people of Earth were left scrambling, trying to comprehend the scale of the attack. This wasn't an invasion, it was an execution. The greatest military minds on Earth couldn't grasp what was happening. The weaponry of the invaders was beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. Shielded by massive energy fields, their warships tore through Earth's defenses as though they were made of paper. The planet's most powerful weapons, the ones that had protected Earth from lesser threats, were no match for the Empire's superior technology. In the chaos, one figure emerged, Captain Alex Rivera. At first, his name was only whispered in the military circles, another commander trying to rally what remained of Earth's forces. But as the death toll mounted, Rivera's reputation began to spread. His strategic mind, honed over years of military experience, began to devise the first resistance. What Earth needed was a leader who wasn't afraid to face the impossible. And Rivera was that leader. The attack was relentless. Despite desperate counterattacks from Earth's air and naval fleets, the Empire's firepower overwhelmed them. The most advanced missiles Earth had ever produced were either intercepted or dodged by the alien ships, their shields virtually impenetrable. And then came the message. An encrypted transmission intercepted by Earth's global defense systems sent a chilling warning. Asterisk, we are coming for you. Surrender now or face extinction. Asterisk. The message was clear. There was no room for negotiation. The Empire was not here for diplomacy. Earth was nothing more than an obstacle, a speck in the galaxy standing in the way of their conquest. Rivera had been planning for this. He had foreseen the unthinkable, a force capable of bringing Earth to its knees. Now, it wasn't about stopping the Empire, it was about survival. The first time he saw the devastation, it felt unreal. Entire cities wiped from existence in moments, their inhabitants erased without mercy. His mind raced, calculating the odds, piecing together information as fast as he could. The Empire had the firepower, the numbers, and the resolve. Humanity had nothing. Yet in the chaos, Rivera saw a sliver of hope, the one thing the Empire didn't understand about Earth. Humans weren't like the other species they had conquered. Humanity wasn't bound by the limitations of technology alone. They were survivors. They had always been able to adapt to any crisis. This time they would adapt to the impossible. But there was no time to waste. A fleet of Earth's warships had gathered in orbit, the remaining forces after most had been decimated in the initial strikes. Rivera stood at the helm of the last functional command ship, the Valor, a sleek vessel that had taken countless hours of improvisation to keep operational. "We can't hold them off much longer, sir," one of the officers said, looking over the tactical displays. "Their fleet's closing in fast." Rivera's eyes didn't leave the view of Earth on the screen, half the planet now burning with firestorms. He clenched his jaw, hands steady on the command console. This was a war, but more importantly, it was a test of humanity's will to survive. There was no room for error. Then the Empire's fleet unleashed a final salvo. The sky above Earth lit up with thousands of missiles descending like meteors, ready to finish what had already been started. Rivera's heart pounded, his mind racing with the countless options they had considered. None of them were good enough. None of them could guarantee victory. But one plan stood out. The untested, risky plan. The one thing that could change the course of the battle. A sharp ping sounded from the control board. "Sir, we've received another message," the officer said, voice trembling. Rivera turned to face him, the weight of his decision pressing down on him like never before. "Play it," Rivera ordered. The screen flickered as an image of an Imperial officer appeared. His face was expressionless, cold. He spoke only one sentence: "Your species is doomed." You will fall just like the others. And then the transmission cut off. Rivera looked out over Earth one last time, his voice low but steady. Not today. Not this time. As the countdown to humanity's desperate counterattack began, one thing was certain. This was only the beginning. The Genesis Protocol was humanity's last hope. A message flashed across every screen on Earth, a signal from deep within the global network. It was brief, cryptic, and hidden within layers of military encryption. It simply read, activate Genesis. Prepare for the impossible. Captain Rivera had seen the message. He had known the time for traditional warfare had passed. The Empire's overwhelming superiority demanded something far more drastic. The Resistance couldn't fight the Empire with sheer firepower alone. Humans had to leverage their greatest asset, ingenuity. The Valor drifted in the shadow of Earth, hidden behind debris and wreckage from the failed defenses. Rivera's eyes scanned the data on the holographic display, the numbers of casualties steadily climbing with each hour. Yet even in this moment of devastation, humanity's most brilliant minds were working. They had no choice. Rivera, you need to see this, a voice broke through his thoughts. It was Commander Laura Cardenas, the brilliant strategist who had been overseeing Earth's scattered forces since the invasion began. She stood beside a communications officer, a grim look on her face. What is it? Rivera asked, his voice steady but filled with urgency. Genesis. It's ready, she said, nodding to the officer. The officer pressed a button, and the holographic display shifted, revealing a 3D map of the Earth's surface. In the center of it, surrounded by a blue light, was an icon labeled Genesis. Rivera didn't need to ask any more questions. He already knew what Genesis was. It was a plan, a final project humanity had begun developing years ago, when they realized that their technology might one day fall short against a threat like the Empire. It was designed to turn the tables, to allow humans to tap into unknown weapons hidden within their biology, unlocking latent potential that no alien species had ever anticipated. Are you sure it will work? Rivera asked, his eyes never leaving the display. Cardenas hesitated. It's untested. But it's our only shot. Rivera clenched his fists. The devastation on Earth had only grown worse. The last city defenses had fallen. Now, there was only a matter of hours before the Empire's fleet would turn its attention to the remaining human strongholds. The countdown had already begun. The room was filled with a low hum as the Valor's systems came online, activating the last of the defense measures. Rivera could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. It was no longer just about fighting back, it was about survival, about ensuring that humanity would live to see another day. The Empire couldn't be allowed to win. Not like this. We don't have much time, Rivera muttered. Initiate Genesis. Now. The command was immediate. All across Earth, key military units and research facilities activated the Genesis Protocol, unlocking hidden reserves of energy buried deep within humanity's most brilliant minds. The plan was simple. Create a new weapon that combined human ingenuity with the latent power within their DNA. A new kind of warrior. The process was chaotic, unpredictable, and dangerous. As the protocol spread, the people chosen to carry out the experiments began to undergo extreme transformations. Some showed enhanced strength, others gained heightened intelligence, and still, others unlocked abilities that defied belief. The world watched as ordinary men and women became humanity's ultimate weapon. But not everyone survived the procedure. Out of the hundreds selected, only a fraction of the volunteers were able to endure the transformation. And of those, fewer still emerged with the power that could actually stand up to the Empire's might. The question now was whether the few that had survived could turn the tide. Back on the Valor, Rivera's gaze was locked onto the holographic map. He knew it wasn't just about raw power, humans had never been about power alone. It was their ability to adapt, to overcome, to surprise. That was their strength. The Empire's biggest mistake had been underestimating them. This is our moment, Rivera said, standing tall. We fight back now or we die. No more hesitation. Suddenly, a warning flashed across the screen. It was a transmission from one of the last Earth defenses, a military outpost in the Pacific, that had gone dark. A fleet of Empire warships was nearing the coordinates. They've found us, Cardenas said, her voice tense. We're out of time. Rivera didn't hesitate. Prepare the fleet. We strike now. The Valorous engines roared to life as it broke from the shadows of the debris field, rocketing toward the last remaining Earth stronghold. The Genesis-enhanced soldiers were already boarding the ships, ready for their first engagement. But as they prepared for battle, A new transmission came through. The Empire's voice, chilling in its finality, crackled across the communication system. Asterisk, you cannot win. We have already destroyed your planet's heart. Asterisk. Rivera froze. His mind raced as he realized what this meant. The Empire wasn't just attacking Earth. They were targeting the very thing that could keep humanity alive, the Genesis Protocol. The battle had begun, but this war was far from over. The first blow landed from the inside. Captain Rivera stood at the helm of the Valor, watching the destruction unfold across the solar system. The Empire's warships were positioned above Earth, their dark silhouettes looming over the planet like vultures circling their prey. Humanity was far from defeated, but the battle had just begun, and the stakes had never been higher. Status report, Rivera barked, his voice steady but filled with the weight of a world teetering on the brink of annihilation. All systems operational, sir. The Genesis Enhanced Forces are in position. The Empire's fleet is deploying more troops to the surface, Commander Cardenas reported, her eyes glued to the monitor. We need to act fast, or they'll take control of the planet before we can mobilize our forces. Rivera clenched his jaw. The Empire's assault wasn't just about defeating Earth, it was about subjugating humanity, about wiping them out and erasing their potential. They had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, to survive. But now that the Genesis Protocol was in motion, humanity had an edge they'd never had before. Soldiers capable of going toe-to-toe with the Empire's finest. Prepare the Genesis squads. We need them in the field now, Rivera ordered. His mind raced with strategy, attacking from multiple fronts, disorienting the Empire, using guerrilla tactics and their unexpected advantage in numbers. The Empire was vast, but it was also vulnerable in its arrogance. They thought they could crush humanity with sheer force, but they had no idea what they were up against. In the heart of Earth's most devastated region, a group of Genesis soldiers was preparing for their first full-scale engagement. These soldiers had been altered at a cellular level, enhanced with the ability to absorb and adapt to threats in real time. They could think faster, react quicker, and fight harder than any human could have before. But the true power lay in their minds. Once they activated, their neural connections would unlock new abilities, strength, speed, and even manipulation of energy itself. Sergeant Laura Voss, one of the first volunteers to undergo the Genesis transformation, stood before her team, her eyes glowing faintly with the energy surging through her body. Her senses were heightened, her vision sharper, and her reflexes almost inhuman. But even she knew that the transformation came with risks. I won't lie to you, she said to her team, her voice cold and commanding. What we're about to do isn't just dangerous, it's impossible. But if we don't stop the Empire now, Earth is finished. We fight or we die. Her team nodded in unison, their faces a mixture of determination and fear. These weren't just soldiers, they were humanity's last chance. The Genesis squad moved out, using stealth technology to avoid detection as they infiltrated one of the Empire's forward command bases on Earth's surface. The plan was simple: infiltrate, sabotage, and strike at the heart of the Empire's operations. Their goal was to disrupt the enemy's command and control systems long enough to buy humanity's remaining fleets time to regroup. Voss and her squad crept through the darkened corridors of the base, their movements synchronized, their eyes scanning every shadow. The base was heavily fortified, but the Empire's arrogance had left them vulnerable to this kind of surprise attack. The soldiers knew the risks, they had all volunteered for this, knowing that failure meant certain death. As they reached the central control room, Voss signaled for the squad to hold. They could hear the low hum of Empire machinery inside, their enemies unaware of the human insurgents lurking just outside. One of her team, Private Jaden Kaur, whispered into his comms. We're in position. Ready to breach. Voss nodded and raised her hand. On my mark. The doors to the control room exploded outward with a burst of force as the Genesis squad surged inside, their weapons raised. In the center of the room, a group of Imperial officers scrambled to react, but they were too slow. Voss's team was already moving with a deadly precision, neutralizing their enemies in seconds. But as the last officer fell to the ground, Voss's heart stopped. The central control screen flickered to life. Warning. Critical systems compromised, the computer's cold, mechanical voice intoned. Voss cursed under her breath. We need to shut it down now? But it was too late. The system was already uploading a signal to the Empire's main fleet. Before they could disable the transmission, the countdown timer began flashing on the screen. In moments, Earth's last hope would be exposed to the full force of the Empire's might. Abort mission. Voss shouted, but the order came too late. The signal had already been sent. Regroup. Rivera's voice boomed over the comms. Pull back to the extraction point now. Voss's team raced through the base, but the damage was done. The Empire's forces had been alerted, and the human insurgents were no longer a secret. Their mission had failed, but not without consequences. They had exposed a vulnerability, a weakness in the Empire's seemingly invincible command structure. If they could survive this, they could strike again. Back aboard the Valor, Rivera's eyes were cold as he watched the transmission from the surface. The situation had gone from bad to worse. The Empire would be coming for them, and Earth's fleet was still recovering from the initial bombardment. There was no time to waste. But as the first Imperial ships moved into position to annihilate the insurgents, Rivera received a transmission. A deep, chilling voice crackled through the speaker. You think you can defeat us? We are the Empire. And you are nothing. Rivera clenched his fists. We'll see about that. In that moment, as the battle for Earth raged on, something unexpected happened. A pulse of energy rippled through the air, one that humanity could not yet comprehend. Something had shifted in the tide of war. And the Empire had no idea what was coming next. Humanity had mere hours before the full force of their enemy's ultimate weapon would rain down upon them, obliterating any hope left for survival. Rivera stood in the command center aboard the Valor, eyes fixed on the chaotic battle unfolding across Earth. The planet's last remaining defenses were crumbling, and the Empire was preparing to unleash the finishing blow. We've got less than an hour, Commander Cardenas said, her voice tense as she scrolled through the intel. The superweapon is fully operational and they're targeting the last strongholds. If we don't stop it now, Earth is finished. Rivera's mind raced. The superweapon, a massive doomsday device capable of destroying entire cities in an instant, had been humanity's greatest fear since the invasion began. If the Empire succeeded in launching it, there would be no turning back. Earth's resistance would be reduced to ash. Get me a direct link to the Genesis squads, Rivera ordered. We need to disrupt their launch system now. As the transmission crackled to life, Rivera's eyes hardened. The faces of the enhanced Genesis soldiers appeared on the screen, each one a symbol of humanity's last stand. They were humanity's best hope, the only force capable of taking on the Empire's technological might, but even they could not match the sheer scale of the weapon facing them. We can't reach it, Captain, Sergeant Voss's voice came through, her tone grim. The weapon is too well guarded. We've tried every route and they've sealed off the core controls. The Empire is expecting us. Rivera clenched his fists. He had known the risks. The Genesis squads were humanity's final weapon, but they weren't invincible. The Empire had anticipated their every move, laying trap after trap to ensure their superweapon would succeed. We don't have a choice, Rivera snapped. Push forward. Disrupt the weapon's launch sequence at all costs. We'll buy you as much time as we can from here. The transmission went dead, leaving Rivera alone with his thoughts. Time was running out. The last Genesis squad was already en route to the heart of the Empire's fortress, but they were facing an uphill battle. Every obstacle they encountered meant precious seconds lost, seconds humanity couldn't afford. Back on the surface, the squad was already deep within the heart of the Empire's stronghold, navigating dark, metallic hallways filled with enemy forces. They moved like ghosts, undetected by the Imperial surveillance systems, each step bringing them closer to the core of the superweapon. Voss led the team, her enhanced senses guiding her through the maze. But with every corner they turned, the walls seemed to close in on them. The Empire's defenses were brutal and precise. Each moment felt like a countdown to their inevitable end. We're almost there, Voss muttered, her voice low but determined. Keep moving. Suddenly the air felt thick with tension. An alert flashed across Voss's helmet. EMP detected, incoming blast. Before she could react, a pulse of energy ripped through the corridor, short-circuiting their weapons and communications. We're blind? Private Corps shouted as the squad fumbled to regain control. They've locked us out. Get to the control room now? Voss ordered, pushing forward with what remained of their strength. The clock was ticking and the weapon was almost ready to fire. Back aboard the Valor, Rivera's pulse quickened as he watched the progress of the squad on the planet's surface. They were close, too close, but the Empire was making its move. Their fleet was already mobilizing, preparing to neutralize the human resistance once and for all. This is it, Cardenas said, her voice steely. We're out of time. The weapon is at full charge. Rivera knew there was nothing more they could do from orbit. Their only hope was the Genesis squad below. If they couldn't reach the launch control and disable the weapon in time, Earth's fate would be sealed. Suddenly, an explosion shook the Valor, rocking the ship violently. The crew scrambled as alarms blared. The Imperial fleet had made their move. Earth's last line of defense had been breached. The squad's transmission flickered back to life, but this time, it was not the faces of the soldiers they saw. Instead, the screen was filled with the cold, mechanical face of an Imperial officer. "Captain Rivera," the officer said, his voice dripping with mockery. "You have fought well, but it ends now. You are too late. The weapon is fully activated. Your world will burn." Rivera's stomach tightened as he watched the officer's smug expression. The superweapon was going to fire, and there was nothing left to stop it. He turned to Cardenas. "Prepare for the worst. If we don't make it through this, get Earth's people to safety. We'll make sure they know what humanity was capable of." And just as the Imperial officer's image faded from the screen, a new alert flashed across their systems. It was a signal from the Genesis squad, but the transmission was broken. Only fragments of the message came through, words like impact, failed, and abort. The message ended abruptly, leaving them in a state of uncertainty. Rivera's mind raced. Had they failed? Was humanity's last hope lost? Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. Rivera glanced at the monitor. The Empire's weapon was firing. But in that moment, the ground rumbled again, not from the weapon but from something else. A deep, reverberating hum. A pulse of energy that sent a shockwave through the atmosphere. For the first time since the Empire's arrival, Rivera felt a glimmer of hope. Humanity's final stand had only just begun. The earth trembled and the sky cracked open. Captain Rivera's eyes widened as the ground beneath the Valor shook violently. The impact wasn't from the Empire's weapon, it was something far more dangerous. The superweapon, which had been poised to eradicate everything, was now nothing more than a whisper in the wind. But the true force behind this cataclysmic shift was far from ordinary. "Report," Rivera shouted, gripping the edge of the command console as the ship rocked again, throwing the crew off balance. "Unknown energy signature detected, Captain," Cardenas responded, scanning the data rapidly. Her voice was sharp with disbelief. "It's coming from Earth. The Genesis squads. They've initiated something." Rivera's heart skipped a beat. Genesis, the very plan he had once pinned his hopes on, had always been an unpredictable wildcard. A weapon designed to unlock the latent potential hidden within human biology, but no one could have known just how far it would go. And now, it seemed, humanity's last gambit was making its presence known. "Activate all sensors," Rivera ordered. "I want to know everything." As the crew worked frantically to analyze the new energy signature, a moment of eerie silence settled over the Valor. All eyes were locked on the main screen, which now displayed a strange, swirling mass of energy emanating from Earth's core. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, vibrating with intensity, almost sentient in its rhythm. Then the communication line crackled to life, and Sergeant Voss's face appeared on screen. Her expression was wild, adrenaline coursing through every feature. "Captain, we've done it," she said, her voice hoarse but filled with undeniable triumph. "We've activated the Genesis cascade." Rivera's stomach twisted. He had heard rumors, whispers about a secondary phase to the Genesis protocol, a step that could either evolve humanity into a new kind of life form or lead them into extinction. It was meant to be an emergency measure, but no one had prepared for the scale of what they were now witnessing. The energy field intensified, sending ripples through Earth's atmosphere. Rivers of molten rock began to surge across the surface as the planet's core reacted to the surge of energy. Across the world, people, ordinary men and women, began to feel the effects. The transformation was subtle at first, but it was there. Their bodies, their minds were shifting into something new. And the Empire's forces could do nothing to stop it. "We need to stop this, before it's too late," Cardenas warned, her eyes wide with fear. "We can't control it. If this energy continues to spiral." Before she could finish, another explosion ripped through the air, shaking the Valor to its core. The superweapon, the one humanity had fought so desperately to prevent, had been disarmed. But the blast that followed had nothing to do with the Empire's technology. It was a reaction to the Genesis cascade, a direct consequence of what humanity had unleashed. The entire Imperial fleet shuddered as the energy waves reached their ships. Their shields flickered and faltered under the onslaught. But there was no immediate destruction, no immediate reprisal. Instead, something even stranger happened. The Empire's ships began to move erratically, almost as if they were caught in the grip of an unseen force. Some veered off course, while others appeared to be unable to communicate with their command centers. For the first time since the invasion began, The Empire was on the back foot. Rivera's mind raced. What had Genesis done? Had humanity's last weapon turned the tide in their favor, or had it unlocked a power beyond their comprehension? We're seeing systems failures across their fleet, Cardenas confirmed, a hint of disbelief creeping into her voice. The energy surge is interfering with their technology, ground forces are reporting disarray. The Empire's control is weakening. It was a twist of fate Rivera couldn't have anticipated. The Genesis cascade had not just empowered humanity, it had disrupted the very technology the Empire relied on to control the battlefield. The invaders, once unstoppable, were now scrambling to recover. Keep pressing, Rivera ordered, a cold fire burning in his chest. We need to take advantage of this while we still can. Full offensive, hit them with everything we've got. But just as humanity's forces began to regroup, a chilling new transmission interrupted the Valor's communication lines. The screen flickered, and the image of an Imperial officer appeared. His expression was eerily calm, the remnants of his crew visible behind him, clearly disoriented by the energy disruption. This is not over, Captain Rivera, the officer sneered. You may have crippled our fleet, but you have no idea what you've truly unleashed. Your planet's fate was sealed the moment you activated Genesis. Before Rivera could respond, the officer's image blinked out, replaced by a countdown timer, counting down in real time. A second superweapon, one far worse than the first, was about to fire, and this time it wasn't just Earth at risk. The clock was ticking. Pull back, Rivera ordered, his voice breaking through the chaos. Get us out of here now. Full speed to Earth, prepare for another counterattack. As the Valor raced toward the planet, the countdown continued, its ticking sound echoing in Rivera's ears. Humanity had fought hard, and for a moment, it seemed victory was within reach. But the Empire's final weapon loomed. A weapon that could destroy everything in a single devastating blow. And this time they weren't just fighting for Earth. They were fighting for the future of everything. The countdown reached its final seconds. Captain Rivera stood frozen at the helm of the Valor, his eyes locked on the approaching timer that counted down to the final destruction of Earth. The second superweapon, more powerful and more insidious than anything they had faced before, was primed to obliterate not just Earth but the very fabric of humanity's future. The cold, mechanical voice of the Imperial officer echoed in his mind. You have no idea what you've unleashed. This time there will be no escape. Rivera's fingers hovered over the console as the timer ticked down relentlessly. 10 seconds, 9 seconds, 8 seconds. Every beat of his pulse matched the rhythm of that countdown. Earth's last hope lay not in its military might or in the desperate strength of its remaining forces, but in the sheer will to survive. If the Genesis cascade had changed the course of the battle, they still had one final chance to destroy the Empire. But Rivera had no illusions. It wasn't going to be easy. Captain, Commander Cardenas said, her voice laced with tension. We need to stop it now or all of this will be for nothing. The timer's almost at zero. I know, Rivera replied grimly, sweat beading on his forehead. The Valor hurtled through space toward Earth's atmosphere, but the ship's systems were strained, the hull battered from their previous engagement. Deploy all remaining Genesis squads. We take them down now. Outside, the massive Imperial fleet still hung above Earth, disoriented by the Genesis cascade but still deadly. Rivera knew they had no time to waste. The Empire had one last card to play, and this time they wouldn't get another chance to recover. Deploying squads, Cardenas confirmed, her fingers moving swiftly over the console. Send me all available combat data, Rivera barked. I want every system running at maximum capacity. We need to intercept that weapon. As Earth came into view, a flare of light erupted from the surface, a fiery streak cutting across the sky like a comet. The Empire's second superweapon, a planetary annihilator designed to wipe out all of humanity in one devastating pulse, was charging. A deep, unnerving hum filled the ship's hull as the Valor prepared for its final assault. Humanity's forces had already begun their counteroffensive on Earth's surface, disrupting Imperial ground forces as the Genesis-enhanced soldiers fought back with ferocity. But they couldn't afford a moment's hesitation. The superweapon had to be stopped before it could launch. Suddenly, the communication system flickered to life, and a distorted image of an Imperial officer appeared on the screen. His face was dripping with disdain, though his eyes burned with something else, an unexpected twinge of fear. You think you can stop us? The officer sneered. You have nothing left. You're finished. His image flickered, but before Rivera could respond, the timer on the superweapon reached zero. Nothing happened. For a moment time seemed to stand still. The Empire's fleet continued to drift, their movements erratic and desperate, but there was no blast of energy, no catastrophic destruction from the weapon. Rivera's brow furrowed as he leaned closer to the console. The countdown had reached its end. Why hadn't it fired? Sir, Cardenas's voice broke through, disbelief filling her words. The superweapon systems, they're offline. The energy source is unstable. The weapon, it's malfunctioning. Rivera felt the knot in his stomach loosen, but there was no time to celebrate. Something was wrong. The Empire wasn't defeated yet. If the superweapon wasn't firing, it meant they had another plan, another trick up their sleeve. Then, without warning, the screens on the Valor blazed with a new signal, a final, desperate transmission from the Empire. Not finished, the officer rasped, his voice distorted as if it were coming from a deep well. The true weapon will fire, no matter what you do. The signal cut off, leaving only static behind. Rivera's pulse raced. He turned to Cardenas, his voice urgent. Where's the launch point for this final weapon? Coordinates sent, she replied, her fingers working over the controls. It's coming from the planet's core, Captain. The weapon is linked to Earth's gravitational field, and the energy surge is destabilizing the core. If it activates, we'll have no time to stop it, Rivera finished for her, understanding the gravity of the situation. The Empire had rigged the planet itself to become a weapon. Prepare for emergency extraction, Rivera commanded. Activate all shields. But as the orders left his mouth, the ship's hull rumbled with the force of an impact, shaking the very foundation of the Valor. The ship pitched to the side as the gravitational distortion worsened. Rivera's eyes widened as he realized the truth. The planet wasn't just a weapon, it was collapsing. Earth was unraveling from the inside out. We're losing power. Cardenas shouted, her voice barely audible over the alarms blaring throughout the ship. The gravitational shift is too much. We can't maintain orbit. Rivera's hands flew over the controls, desperately trying to stabilize the ship. But even as he worked, the whole planet seemed to tremble. The gravity wells caused massive distortions, and the core's destabilization was setting off chain reactions. The surface of Earth began to crack open, sending plumes of fire and ash into the atmosphere. And then, just as everything seemed lost, something incredible happened. The Genesis Cascade, humanity's final hope, surged once again, but this time, it was not a destructive force. It began to stabilize the planet, weaving a protective field around Earth as the Genesis-enhanced soldiers on the surface combined their newfound powers with humanity's collective will to survive. The energy was enough to halt the chain reaction, enough to repair the damage before it became irreparable. The final superweapon failed, its countdown frozen in time. For the first time since the invasion began, Earth was safe. Humanity had won. But as Rivera stared at the remnants of the Imperial fleet drifting helplessly in space, a chilling realization washed over him. This victory, though hard-won, was only the beginning. The galaxy had learned the strength of Earth's spirit, and now, all would be watching.